Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after game 74 of the 2003-2024 series. That's about as nicely, I think, as I can dress it up. I tried. I really did. I really tried. I know a lot of people like to talk about pessimistic Renny and optimistic Renny and all these different kind of things. I really tried the last couple of games. Thank you very much, sweetheart. I really tried the last couple of games to kind of build something, to look at the positives, to be, on the in the mindset of someone who's looking for the things that would make you believe in the team that we cover. Not because, I'm not trying to tweak my journalistic biases or anything like that. I think I was trying to, there's nothing that I'd said in the last couple of podcasts that I didn't truly believe. I thought that the Winnipeg Jets were better than they had been, clearly. And it was a step forward compared to where they'd been, which was pretty low in that game against the Washington Capitals. And then I thought they built on it against the Edmonton Oilers. I still thought that they were the second best team in that game, but they come away with a point. The game after that, Vegas Golden Knights, I still truly do think that they were the better team in that game. They didn't come away with the victory, but you play that game over and over again with that kind of effort, then maybe even though I can tell you, as I said in the last podcast, talking with the Golden Knights, they thought they had a terrible game. So that was likely not the Vegas Golden Knights at the peak of their powers. And so the Jets, were they that much better than them that we were saying, oh, here they are, they're back? No, but they were better than them in that game. So you were seeing stages of build. It's hard for me to put a positive face on this one. Now, there's going to be certain people out there. This is one of the times that I always find myself kind of on the other side of arguments with Jets fans, is the whole found a way to win argument, right? Because a lot of people take a look at that and they take a look at the Winnipeg Jets, being down after a couple of periods and then coming back and finding a way to win. And they're plucky, and good teams find a way to win and all that kind of stuff. And the reason that I always find myself consistently, or not always, but very consistently find myself on the other side of that argument, is I don't always see what other people are seeing. What other people are seeing is a team that's going out and trying, and then they figure it out and they turn it on and they go. What I'm seeing is, hey, you want to say like good teams find a way to win? No, good teams do the right thing as many times as they can, over and over and over and over and over again. And then they get the results that they deserve out of it. Sometimes good teams find themselves in a place where bad luck meant they got put in a bad spot, or they didn't get the right bounce, or things aren't going their way or whatever. And they get put in a bad spot in a game, and then they find a way to win. And they're a good team that finds a way to win. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the characterization time and time again of games in which the Winnipeg Jets don't show up for wide swaths of the game and then decide to show up at the end and pull a rabbit out of a hat in a victory, I'm not going to assign not trying and then trying in a late push and winning a game. I'm not going to assign that with some kind of, high value, good teams finding a way to win. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be putting yourself in this situation. And one of the reasons why is because this is where that path eventually leads to. You know how I always talk about the Jets being a tortoise and the hare team, and the Jets are the hare that, speeds out, takes it easy, is lax about the whole thing, and then races across the finish line right ahead of the tortoise. We know where that fable goes, and it eventually goes to the hare losing. But in the case of the Winnipeg Jets, it ends up going to them losing and losing and losing over and over again as the season wears on, as we've seen in years past. This is all to me to get to the idea that I know what some of you are going to say. Wide open net at the end of the game. If they score that, it's an entirely different game. Oh, the third period. That's when the real Jets showed up. That's who we really are. And we totally ran over them. They were lucky to come away with that victory and all that kind of stuff. The real Winnipeg Jets are the team that really didn't show up in the first two periods and then tried to make a late push to come into that game, and then made a mistake by taking a penalty that, and I'll get into that and why I think it's an egregious penalty, and then end up losing that game. I don't assign their pluckiness or them deciding to start trying in the third period with a noble act. This to me is unacceptable at this stage of the season for the Winnipeg Jets. And never mind the fact that they're trying to avoid a 6-game losing streak, and they come out and they don't have the effort required at this time of season in the first or the second period. The streak is meaningless. You want to know why streaks are meaningless? Well, at one point in this season, the Winnipeg Jets had gone 34 games in a row without allowing by allowing 3 goals or less. Okay, that was a streak. How's that streak doing for you right now? It's not about the streak. It's not about ending the streak. It's not about getting a victory. If the Winnipeg Jets would have gone out tonight and played a phenomenal game against another team that played a phenomenal game and they lost, I still think it's a good thing. It doesn't matter if this streak ends. What matters is that the Winnipeg Jets start committing to playing the right way before they get into the playoffs. And the first 2 periods, there is no doubt about it. In these first 2 periods, the shot may have been close and the scoreboard may have been close. I'm going to tell you this right now. Connor Hellebuyck was the best player in this game. I don't think it was particularly close. And other than that, and yes, the Jets make this crazy push in the third period. But if you barely get by in the first 2 periods because you are hanging your goaltender out to dry and he's making save after save after save in tight, high danger opportunities over and over again, slot shots over and over and over again, you're not doing it right. You're not doing this situation right. The way I see it, the Jets starting tonight had 9 games left to try and get themselves into a place where their game is something that they can lean on, be confident in going forward into the playoffs. And they gave away the first 2 periods of that game against an Ottawa Senators team that, yes, they're playing good hockey right now. Yes, that's their 5th straight win. Do I pick that apart? I do, to a degree. One of those wins came against the Edmonton Oilers. The rest of those wins are against teams below the playoff line. I take a look at the Ottawa Senators tonight, and while I see a very plucky team that works really hard and clearly outworked the Winnipeg Jets for the first 2 periods of this game here tonight, I also see a young team that's mistake prone, that a very good veteran team that's going to the playoffs and needs a win should have been able to pick apart in a lot of points in this game. Regardless of whether you want to go down this road, and a lot of people will, that, hey, the Winnipeg Jets, they get that empty netter, they get a couple bounces, things go their way, Mark Scheifele scores into that empty net when the goaltender is out, and we could be talking about a win in this situation. The Winnipeg Jets are extremely competitive in this moment with a bottom 10 team in the NHL. And that's something that should be a wake-up call to a lot of people. In fact, let's give it a Pristine Roofing wake-up call. Anyone who thinks this kind of stuff is okay deserves the Pristine Roofing wake-up call, in my mind, because this is just not where you want your team to be at this stage of the season. So you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 1-204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place to look at any roofing, siding, exterior needs. That season has arrived, folks. Also, Pristine Roofing, you can get a hold of them at 204-237-7663. Do not forget their Pay It Forward program, Pristine Roofing, gifting a free roof to someone out there who is in need. If you know someone like that, make sure you get a hold of either North End Rick or Pristine Roofing at the numbers that I showed you there. That is a great program they're putting forward. Get the word out. Spread the word. If it's not you that knows someone, tell your friends, tell everybody. Get the word out there, because that's a massively generous gift that Pristine Roofing is putting out there. And I think they want to cast as wide a net as they possibly can. Long story short, to sum this up, hey, if I was building the narrative that before this, the Winnipeg Jets were taking steps forward, and I believe they were, could they have been taking faster, bigger, steeper steps? Yes. Is it a bad news situation that the Winnipeg Jets need to be taking steps back to being competitive at this time of season? Yes, no doubt that's a concern. But to me, that ends here on this night. This is not a step forward for the Winnipeg Jets. This is a concerning scenario in which a team very much is starting to look like they've lost their way if they cannot manufacture more of a push, more of the right kind of hockey in the first two periods of this game, and leave their coach screaming at them on the bench to get some kind of response. It is not a good thing that with 8 games left in the season, you are still throwing the top lines of this team in the line blender just to try and get them to try. Hey, please try for me. What if I put this guy on your line? Will you start trying? How about now? How about I hit the line blender one more time? Will you start trying now? This isn't a scenario where it's a lack of chemistry or anything like that. It's a lack of effort. And if you are joggling your lines because you are juggling your lines, joggling's not a word. If you are juggling your lines in an effort to manufacture a give a rat's ass meter on your team, this is disastrous. And you can tell by his comments post game, by Adam Lowry's comments post game, Mark Scheifele's, Rick Bonus's. This is not a, hey, everything's all right, we just need to turn things around scenario here. There is deep and earned concern on the part of the Winnipeg Jets in this case. And that's what we saw here tonight. And that's where we leave this team with less than a 10th of a season left to go before they go into the playoffs. That's my take on the whole thing. I've tap danced to keep Ken Wiebe available to do what he needs to do. He's now available to do what he needs to do. So let's do it, ladies and gentlemen, bringing the man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Ken, loving the suit, loving the tie, loving the shirt combo. You're putting it together. Or are you? Or is it help that you're getting from our main man, Frankie, or one of the boys down at Vittorio Rossi that can have you looking like that can pick those kind of combinations and put them together? If you'd like to see a combination like that and be wearing that, you can head on down to Corden Avenue. Go to Vittorio Rossi, walk in loudly, proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you, ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will no doubt do you up right. Ken, I've taken a lot of time on this show just to make sure we got up in time for the folks and that you were able to do what you need to do. So we need you to get right into it. No failure to launch here, Ken. What'd you see here tonight?
Well, Sean, I know I was quite vehement in the we're going to find out what the Jets are made of. I think it was one Saturday ago. That was 4 games ago. 5 games ago, pardon me. There have been 4 games played since, and I'm here to tell you the Jets have sort of eaten up all of their benefit of the doubt. I believe, Sean, would be where I'm at in terms of our discussions. I felt like they had earned a little bit longer benefit of the doubt, but you and Jeff Hamilton were on this before I was ready to hop over that fence. And right now, the Jets are not playing like a team that either A, wants to finish anywhere other than third in the Central Division. And I'm sorry, they've got 8 games left and they're 6 behind the Avalanche and 7 behind the Stars. Their best case scenario, Sean, is third place right now, is what it seems like to me, based on how they're playing. I saw some signs this week.
They're not finishing it. They're not.
No, that's what I said. That's their best case scenario. Best case scenario is third place. Right now, they're not playing like a team that has aspirations of winning 4 rounds. Right now, the way they're playing, they'll be lucky to win 1 round. That's not to say that they can't do it, but currently their commitment level is not at a required level to be among the best teams in the NHL. They still have a bunch of the elements that would align with having potential. But right now, that potential is not being realized. And Sean, you hit the nail on the head. I'm sorry that effort level cannot be a question mark in Game 74. I don't care what level you're playing hockey at. That simply cannot be the case. And right now, the Jets aren't finding a way to provide enough of anything, quite frankly. Yes, they snapped an 0 for 20 drought on the power play. Well, congratulations. I mean, this is a team with all kinds of offensive weapons. And yes, they did a good job. And yes, they got a good bounce. And yes, Mark Scheifele read the scouting report that Jonas Korpisalo comes out of his net. So it wasn't a fluke. He knew that that spot was available. And if the puck gets past Zub's skate, Gabriel Velarde bangs it in. So that's a smart play by a smart player. And the Jets' power play finally got themselves going. But I'm sorry, 5-on-5, they're not good enough. You cannot be allowing 4-on-1s at will. And after you allow a 4-on-1 goal, how in the world can you give up a 3-on-1 like 2.5 minutes later?
Yeah.
It's inexplicable for a team that was on full lockdown mode for 3.5 months of the season, or 4 months. Again, I'm not here to crush the Jets for an hour's time, but I just don't understand how this team has gone from such an incredibly high level of commitment to being they're not even a glimpse of what they were before. There are glimpses of it, as Adam Lowry pointed out, Sean, in the post-game interviews with the media. But he mentioned the stubbornness, Sean. Stubbornness cannot be a factor for a team with championship aspirations. You have to know, they know what the blueprint looks like, and now they're not committing to it to the level that is required. I'm baffled by this. It's very confusing as to how they got to this point. And you're right. Without Connor Hellebuyck, starting off with the Stützle save, this game again is not even one the Jets can rally back in and tie the game. Ottawa could have run away with it were it not for Hellebuyck. So it's very confusing time. Now, hey, they can prove us wrong. And again, I'm not here saying the season's over. But right now, the Jets need to find their crank up the level meter is way too, they've got far too high to get to than where they should be given the situation they found themselves in, let's say, a month earlier. And that's a problem at this time of year.
I want to go to this question by waiters. I think it's a good one. And you kind of said that you already don't know the answer to this question. I'm going to ask you to give me your best theory as to how the Jets got here. As in waiters saying, Ken, how did we get here? I've got thoughts on this. I think it's pretty consistent in what I've been saying here the whole time. But I want your take on how we get to a place like this where the Jets season that had looked so promising. And hey, let's remember this. The last time the Winnipeg Jets won a playoff round, they did it shortly after losing 7 straight games down the stretch. So my take on that year is that, yes, it worked out. The analytics will tell you that 4-0 sweep series that they had against the Edmonton Oilers did not look like a 4-0 sweep in favor of them. But the next series that they did get swept, I thought their bad habits caught up with them.
Yeah,
and they
fair.
lose to the Edmonton Oilers. But I want you to go here on what Waiters has to say and retroactively now, Ken, go from where they were at Christmas time, where we've seen them since then, and give us an idea of how you think the Jets find themselves in a predicament where there is that much visceral frustration coming from the coach, from the players of this team after a game in which, if they would have taken that frustration and used it as fuel, the game would have looked a lot different than it did.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to think of where the Jets were, December 22nd, Sean. That seems like a long time ago, right? The Boston Bruins rolled into town, into Winnipeg on December 22nd, and The Jets made them look like they were a pretender, Sean. They looked like a pretender. The Jets looked, there were no talk of, oh, the Jets, can they be an elite team? They blew the doors off the Bruins. And no, the Bruins didn't have their best game, but the Jets were looking incredible. All kinds of commitment, everything else. And almost all of that has gone out the window for poor puck management, kind of blind passes. It's absolutely baffling, Sean. Neil Pionk made a backhand pass today that it was to nobody. It went right to the right defenseman. It happened right in front of you. He was not under pressure. He just made a blind backhand pass. It was just very baffling. And again, I'm not blaming all of this on Neil Pionk, but it was not a good play. And they've just had there used to be, Sean, there were always going to be errors made in a game, but they weren't making these types of errors all the time. And right now, they're making more bad decisions than good decisions. And that's something that, again, it's uncharacteristic when you compare it to that 34 game run that, yes, people made jokes about and everything else, but the Jets were so committed. Sean, 14 consecutive games of 2 or fewer. That is very difficult to do in the National Hockey League because some nights a team just doesn't have it. And right now, well, sure, Dom Zappia. I mean, we should have just asked Dom instead. Special teams is how things have got here. That's played a massive role.
It's played a role, but you can't just pin it on.
It's not only special teams, no, because the other parts have dipped, Sean.
Every time you try to say if we would add a special teams goal here or there, we would have tilted the scales. That doesn't take into account what would have happened in the game after that. So yes, special teams plays a role in this, but it's not just that. It is.
I didn't say it was just that. Yes. I said it's been a big factor. I'm saying Rick Bowness believes it's a big factor.
Yeah,
he said it this morning.
It's a
Rick
factor.
Bowness said flat out the Jets would be a 100-plus point team right now if they had not. And again, they have 94, so it's not like he's saying they'd be a 120-point team.
4 more wins,
yeah, or even so 3 wins, yeah. It's a big part of it. But to me, the biggest issue is just the decision making is not there, Sean, and the puck management is the number one when you play the style that the Jets are trying to play to have success. That means being an aggressive hockey team in all 3 zones, but having the support. So again, the Jets finally get a goal in a game where they hadn't really had much cooking. They get a goal to get on the board from Ehlers. Incredibly smart play by Sean Monahan. And I'm not changing the subject. I'm going to get back to the question at hand in a second. But that's a smart play by Monahan. Low shot to the pad. Ehlers goes to the hard area, the place where you're going to score goals in the playoffs or need to go to score goals. Ehlers is there, gets inside position, roofs his shot. The Jets didn't have plays like that for a long time after scoring that goal. So again, it's the stubbornness, and I don't understand what it is. But again, a couple things have happened. Gabriel Vilardi missed a ton of games, 15 here, a couple more back. Kyle Connor's not the same player since his knee injury. There's no way around that. And I'm sorry, the people in the chat room saying the Jets are a better team without Kyle Connor. This team struggles to score goals. Yeah, I understand the Jets give up something when Kyle's on the ice defensively at times, but you don't take 30 goals out of the lineup and say, oh yeah, the Jets are a way better team. People used to say that when Dustin Byfuglien was out and the Jets would have a decent record. It didn't mean they were a better team without Byfuglien. It means they managed without him. So again, Kyle Connor was on a 50-goal pace before he got hurt, has not been the same player since. Now, twofold, he makes a very good play and has to win a battle with Claude Giroux on the power play right before Scheifele scores. He first turned the puck over, making a pass that you can't make, but then he at least battled on the play to get the puck to Scheifele. So anyways, all to say, the Jets just aren't getting enough from their players, but to me, it's about the decision-making, Sean, that has got them here. Now, again, it's not a great back check by the offensive line, Mark Scheifele said it himself. The pass to Kyle Connor was too crispy, and then it got turned the other way, and it got compounded because Josh Morrissey jumped up on the play, wanted to pinch and make something happen, but there was no F3 support there. And right after the Jets had scored, they give up a 4-on-1, and it's not even a tap in. It's an absolutely wide open net. So as hard as the Jets, Sean, this reminded me of 2018 against Vegas. They worked so hard to get the lead by Patrick Laine scoring, and like 8 seconds later, they bobble the puck and Thomas Nosek scores, right? I mean, that was very reminiscent of those times. The Jets aren't playing well enough defensively, Sean. And honestly, the identity that we thought this team had, the Jets are kind of on their way to abandoning that identity. Don't you think?
Oh, they're in the process. They have completely abandoned that identity. I'm going to go back to the original question and take a stab at my explanation of this here. And I'll say this. So again, it's Waiters is asking, how did we get here? I took exception to this. I don't often like to spar. Well, no, I do like to spar with the chat room. I don't like to get like frazzled by, but Cranley here says, y'all have been slow on the uptake. Much of the hockey world has seen this coming. This is an absolutely ridiculous take to bring to my doorstep when a lot of what the hockey world is talking about are points that I put out, points that behind the scenes I talked to people in the national media and said, watch out for this. The whole thing that we've been talking about the Jets schedule and how they compete really well against bottom feeder teams and struggle against top teams. Sean Reynolds is the guy who brought that to the attention of the national media. I've been talking about this since, and I'll go back and talk about, like, I can tell you, go back and watch the Kenny and Renny show after the Jets beat the Blackhawks 2-1. They come off a 6-2 victory over the Coyotes on January 7th. They beat the Blue Jackets. I walk out of those games, and then it's the Blackhawks, and I say, listen, they're not competing properly. This is not a game. This isn't the Blackhawks doing everything right. This is the Jets are letting it slide, and they're doing it because they've just come off games against the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks on January 5th. So January 4th, it's the Sharks. 5th, it's the Ducks. 7th, it's the Coyotes. 9th, it's the Blue Jackets. And then it's the Blackhawks. So the Jets go rolling through that stretch of hockey and are just kicking the pants off these teams and feeling really good about themselves. And you go back to that show and see how I say they're not going to do well against good teams like this. So how do they follow that up? Well, they get shut out by the Philadelphia Flyers in their very next game. The game after that, they do beat the New York Islanders 4-2, but it's a game I didn't see, Ken, that you said this was a game Sean Reynolds wouldn't have liked. It was one where it was looked like the Jets kind of pulled one out here. Then they beat the Senators 2-1 in overtime and follow that up by going on a 5-game losing streak. No one rang the alarm bells on the Winnipeg Jets earlier than it happened on this podcast right here. And when I do that in those situations where they've won 5 straight games, I sit and I look at the chat room and listen to everyone talk about how, oh, they've won 5 straight games and, oh, who's criticizing this and who's a negative Nelly and all this kind of stuff. If we call it out, it's because we see it. But the suggestion that this wasn't seen coming and that we're following the national media on this, I am the national media in this case. This is conversations that I'm having with people and telling them, watch out for this, watch out for that. This is what is part of the conversation that you are probably sitting there smugly and trying to take credit for or saying that you're finding elsewhere. This is where you heard it first. And my take on this whole thing when it comes to it is the Winnipeg Jets got lulled into a sense of false security in the way that they were absolutely kicking the pants off of teams. Ken is talking about their identity being gone. I contend that the Winnipeg Jets identity starts to slip as they're playing teams that they don't need to worry about playing good defense against. They don't need to have that structure where they're shutting them out, because with the open ice that those teams provide, the Winnipeg Jets can start going back to their wide open offense, which they're very good at. I contend one of the best teams in the NHL at. and they go out and they kick the pants off those teams. And then what did we do? We started ringing the alarm bells about the fact that the Jets, yes, they're winning these games. No, they're not winning these games. This is a problem. In cases like that, we had people who are saying, taking offense to the idea that I would suggest some teams are of a lower echelon than the upper echelon teams. How's that working out for you now? How's it working out for the Jets? Never mind the idea that it's like 5 games ago that I said on this podcast, you should expect the Winnipeg Jets numbers to drop and be probably in the neighborhood of 500 or just under or just over based on how they've played this schedule. Well, that was 12 games. Guess what, Ken? I'm wrong, but I'm not wrong in the way that everyone on this podcast thought I was going to be wrong. I'm wrong in the opposite direction. It was too rosy of a forecast for the Winnipeg Jets. I thought they would get 11 to 13 points in their last 12 games. In 4 games, they've managed 1. In order for them to get 13 points now, they're going to have to go 6-2 in their last 8 games. The way they're playing, that's not happening. So if we've been wrong in a direction that as bad as the Jets have been and as much of an effect as the schedule has had, when you start stacking the good teams up one after another against the Winnipeg Jets, that and them not having the kind of lift that they get from kicking the pants off of the Ducks 6-0 and doing the same thing a couple nights later against the Columbus Blue Jackets, that their confidence is clearly waning. And Ken, you nailed it. The problem with a really, really great defensive system like the Winnipeg Jets had is it takes complete and total buy-in. And once one player starts not doing his job on the ice out of 5, it starts unraveling at the seams. And then another player does it, and it happens again, and it happens again, and it happens again. And there was a point tonight, Ken, where you texted me, and I don't want to out this, but I think you'll be okay with saying with it. Josh Morrissey made a couple bad pinches here tonight. What I take from that is Josh Morrissey is sitting back, and he's trying to control the outcome of the game. So he's trying to go outside of himself and do more than he usually does. And sometimes it works. And when it works, it looks good. How many times has Nikolai Ehlers gone and done a one-man show and it worked out this year and it ends up in the back of the net? So you start thinking, well, maybe that's what we need to do. Mark Scheifele almost had a really great one-man show goal tonight as he deked twice to the middle and great save.
Went to the backhand,
Went to the backhand. But this was where the Jets' best offense was created on this night. Was individual efforts by players, because you are not what that tells me is when the best players on the Winnipeg Jets are going out and they're trying to one-man band this thing, you are abandoning the structure to try to make something happen. You are saying, I want this so bad, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this. We talked about it in the third period against the Washington Capitals. The Winnipeg Jets just started trying to skate the puck into the zone, turning it over at the line. This is a team now that has gone from, and this is why I was saying the Lamplighter the last couple of games are the Monahan goals, because those are the kind of goals that the Jets should be scoring. Not that I'm going to take this on my back and do it all myself. That's a clear sign of someone playing outside of the team structure. We're at a stage right now where so many guys are so far from what the structure is supposed to be that 3 guys could get it right, but if 2 guys out on the ice get it wrong, it does not work because it takes 100% buy-in. The Jets have strayed far too far from the base of what they're supposed to be. It's not easy to get it back. This is why Rick Bowness says you don't just flip the switch in the playoffs. This is why he wants good habits. This is why the team needs to get its act together and start getting it done today. And this is why this is an egregious loss, because throwing out the first 2 periods against the Ottawa Senators with a lack of effort and not trying to use that as time to get back to your structure is a sin in the eyes of a team that is trying to make some noise in the playoffs, Ken.
Yeah, and again, just to clarify here, Tracy Okranik actually says it here. JMO was expecting his forwards to back him up like they were early in the year, and they're not doing it. I mean, that's part of it. And again, I've got no problem with Josh trying to take over the game, because he's had to do it, because there's certain other players on the Jets that aren't getting the job done among their star players. So I don't necessarily think it was a bad decision. Just they were decisions that weren't working out for him. So Yeah, it's just confusing, Sean, and that we've talked a lot about it. The complexion of the roster has changed, the leadership has changed, a lot of things have changed. But when Adam Lowry talks about stubbornness, it once again is sort of in a reversion to old habits, and those old habits are not going to allow the Jets to be successful. So unless they get it figured out in the next 8 games here, you know, they're going to be thinking about a long off season of question marks again. And yeah, hey, we talk about receipts. When you were talking about the record in 500, I thought, man, I thought the Jets were going to easily be a 50-win team based on what they had left, but they're going to have to win 6 of 8 to win 50 games. So again, it's not, the season's not over. The Jets don't win 50, but they were comfortably in a position to win the Central, Sean. Like, not long ago, games in hand, winning percentage, everything. Those games in hand are gone, and the Jets are, have a legitimate threat from behind them now that they have to contend with. They're actually quite fortunate, Sean, that Nashville lost to
Yeah.
Arizona and then lost. I mean, again, they're not fortunate to lose to Colorado because
I
Colorado right now is a wagon. But
I still say
it's tough for them to get caught.
worrying about them is much ado about nothing. They need to make up 5 points, the Nashville Predators do, because the Jets have the tiebreaker. So 8 games left in between the two teams. Even if the Nashville Predators go 5-3, or even if they go 6-2, it still means the Jets would have to go they'd have to go 3-5. And now that's possible. I know it's possible either way. It still remains extremely unlikely that happens. Okay. That's a bad record to go 3-5 down the stretch and have the other team go 6-2. Neither outcome is very likely. And even if it did happen, what's the big deal? Like you've already given away home ice advantage in the first round. That's gone. See it later. So what that means is you're less likely to get it in the second round. And to get it in the second round, you would have needed a lot of crazy stuff to happen, which is possible, Ken, no doubt, in the climate of what we're seeing going down the stretch here. I think the biggest issue that could happen if the Winnipeg Jets were to drop would be to fall all the way to playing the Vancouver Canucks, which would mean that Dan Murphy is probably likely to host that series and not Sean Reynolds. So the only one with something to lose
Or
in
the
that
Oilers
case anywhere. I don't think the Oilers will catch them, but
They're on the
who had it
back now.
Who had it on their bingo card that the Edmonton Oilers would catch the Winnipeg Jets in points this season? They did it today with their victory, and they also have 2 games in hand. That's crazy. That's crazy that happened. Anyways, Ken, over 1,000 people in here right now. We're running hot.
Spicy Renny is attracting a crowd.
Why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out before we move on?
Yeah, right on. For folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, whether you're buying, selling, or curious what that house on the corner is going for, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
There's a lot to debate about what the Winnipeg Jets or True North as an organization has done right to bring the fans back. A lot of different things, but they've been engaging and they've been pushing. They've been reaching out to people. You are seeing the Winnipeg Jets take steps that I don't believe you've seen them take in the past. That is reconnecting them with fans. And what that resulted in is the 4th straight shutout for the Winnipeg Jets here, the 8th of the season. I know that once upon a time, having only sold out 10% of your games in a year would have been disastrous for True North. But like I said in the previous games, you're seeing growth, you're seeing build, you're seeing people come back in and have a good time, despite the fact that the Jets are in the middle of this losing streak here. So whatever has been doing. And listen, we'd be better off to hear from you folks out there who are starting to go back to the games on what has worked out for you. But something here for True North has really paid off. And if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Okay, Ken, I want to go in this direction here quickly. Ben Howard with a great question. He says, how do the Jets fix this, Renny? I know he asked me. I want to hear from you. Let's offer up what we think the most direct path to the Winnipeg Jets becoming a competitive team again is. Get her going, Ken.
Yeah, I mean, offense has got to be secondary. There has to be an absolute full and utter commitment to team defense and making smarter puck management decisions. I mean, there's only one way for the Jets to be successful, and that's to be successful defensively. We've talked all year about them being great 5-on-5. I think they're still second in the NHL in goals against at even strength, and I think they'll be just behind the Florida Panthers. Offense comes when this team was at its best, Sean. The offense came from playing sound defensively, and right now they're not doing that enough. I think that today they snapped the power play drought. I think that that's a step in their direction to getting it sorted out. I think having Gabriel Velarde also paid some immediate dividends that our friends at Cambrian Credit Union would also support. I thought that the movement was pretty good before that. Penalty kill, that's a tough one, Sean, because they had two chances to clear. Alex Iafallo lays out for a big block shot off Jake Sanderson, and it wasn't enough for them to get the clear and to prevent Brady Tkachuk, who, I know you just an absolute, Sean, we've been talking about the best player on the opposition being able to rise, and I agree, Connor Hellebuyck probably still the best player in the game, but pretty hard to ignore Tkachuk. 6 shots on goal, 8 shot attempts, and 8 hits. That's a monster game to go along with his game-winning goal and a helper in the contest.
Yeah.
Jets big guns. Sorry, quickest path to this happening. Mark Scheifele, I know he got a goal today. He's got to play like he did against the Rangers, Sean. He's got to play against the way that he did against the Rangers. This is not a one-man show. The Jets need Kyle Connor to be a dangerous player. I think the second line is kind of rounding into form. I know that they went back to Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde. I don't know, just based on what Rick Bowness said, I'm not overly confident they're going back to that on Monday against the LA Kings. But I mean, the Jets need to get themselves committed defensively, and if they do that, goaltending's been fine during this stretch. But I would also say this, Sean, Connor Hellebuyck playing 5 times in eight days, and they got 1 point out of the deal. That's not the teammates. That's not doing justice. If you're gonna work a workhorse that hard, you have to produce a good enough, better effort in front of them to cash more than 1 point out of 20 that were available, or sorry, 10 that were available. That's not good enough. But anyway, to me, it starts with team defense, and if they can clean that part up, then they have a chance to still be effective.
All right. First of all, because we got to get this in before we get other stuff, I'm going to say this right off the bat. Leave Nick Ehlers on a line with Mark Scheifele and Gabe Velarde. Okay. You saw Nick Ehlers' speed creating a wake tonight for Mark Scheifele, creating a path to the net. I don't think it's something Mark Scheifele wants. Why do I say that? I told you all this on the podcast earlier. He had a great game earlier on in the season with Nikolai Ehlers. I asked him about the chemistry that those two were building together, and he deferred and said, well, yeah, and Kyle Connor as well. Like, it was a way of going out of his way not to give credit to Nick Ehlers for it. It seems that he wants to play on a line with Kyle Connor. This is just a scenario by which it's working. What it worked before, put that back together again. Gabe Velarde talked about how much he likes playing with Nick Ehlers. It's a fit because Nick Ehlers just loves to use speed and get the shot to the front of the net. And Gabe Velarde just goes to the front of the net and does great things when he's there. It is like a lock and a key that fits so well. And then you've got the smartest defensive player on your team working around that, taking advantage of whatever happens in both those wakes. Get that going. Let that be. And put yourself in a situation where you can start getting some of the offense that was generated there before, so you don't have to feel like you need to cheat offense, so you can build some confidence in your offense and not feel like you have to abandon your defensive structure to get up and do that. Also, Kyle Connor, the way he's been playing lately, put him on a line where he feels he needs to play his way back up onto that first line. He could use that little bit of motivation. Playing on a line with Sean Monahan probably means that there's a defensive element that they're better off with there. And maybe now, if you can use some smarts on those lines and you've got two trigger men on either side of the ice, maybe that can create some open space. You can just start getting two goal scorers on a line to create something and make it happen. I don't know if it'll work. It's crazy that we don't know if it'll work, because we should be trying these things before you get to the playoffs. But that's where I'm at with that. Third line, leave the third line alone. Story we didn't get to tell tonight was remember, and we used to talk about this, the third line and its ability to just halt momentum for the other team, to stop it in its tracks, and then the Jets would take momentum and go the other way. Asked Rick Bowness about it. His response was essentially, listen, those guys are still doing it, it's just the rest of the team isn't following suit. So third line's okay and can continue doing what it's doing. Everyone else needs to get going here. And then to your point, Ken, this is another one of those things that's hidden in all of this. Is tonight wasn't it wasn't the biggest example, but in the end, the Ottawa Senators get 27 shots here tonight. I forget what the shot total was. I know it wasn't as high.
28-27.
But with the Vegas Golden Knights game, I can't remember what it was, but it seemed to be one of the Jets' better nights. But then you've got these other nights where they're allowing 40-plus shots, even in the victory over the New York Rangers. The fact that they're allowing as much volume to the Jets' net as is happening is it's an indictment on where they are. And once again, as bad as you think this is right now, Winnipeg Jets fans, it's worse than you think, because Connor Hellebuyck is hiding a massive chunk of what's going on here. All these odd man rushes that you saw, the front of the net for the Jets has become wide open. They need to protect the house. They need to play their defense. They need to fall back into their structure. This is obvious stuff. I'm not saying anything like, if I'm Rick Bowness and I'm listening to this right now, it's like, yeah, great advice, Einstein. I'm the guy who's the architect of the system. Clearly, we need to get back into it. But the way you get back into it, you don't give up like this on again, off again that the Jets are playing, where they have periods where they're not able to generate a good push. Like, I heard so many people trying to look for positives in that Edmonton Oilers game, where they're like, well, they had a good first and a third, and Rick Bowness is as guilty of it as anyone. They gave up 18 shots in the second period that they had a 4-minute power play in that game. This is
4.
This is not signs of a team that is doing well, that is defending, that is keeping pucks out. We are talking about multiple games here that if Connor Hellebuyck isn't brilliant, the score's a lot more lopsided. You talked about it, and Stützle having that opportunity at the beginning there, and a whole bunch of opportunities throughout the rest of the game. This is worse than what it looks like right now, because Connor Hellebuyck, as he used to do in the past, is hiding so much of the problems that the Winnipeg Jets are having right now. I would be tearing things down, and everything would be about, every single shift would be about, you weren't in your spot here. You got to be here. You got to be here. It's almost like they need to shut out the results of the game and just go out and be like, I don't care if you lose 7-2. And I mean, clearly that's going to show that it's not working, but everything should be, how was our system tonight? How did our system look? Because to me, at this stage, like I've said, the points don't matter. You're not getting home ice advantage. You're not falling out of the playoffs. You're playing a tough opponent in the first round regardless. I don't know that there's a lot to play for now other than playing the right way. So that should be the focus of the Winnipeg Jets, and let the goals come afterwards. I remember at the beginning of the year, we did a story on Hockey Night in Canada where the Jets were talking about the idea that there was bigger cheers on the bench when a guy backtracked and caught a guy with back pressure, or blocked
Parker Kelly,
all those things. Yeah, well, that was, see, those kind of plays were at one time the plays that the Jets got most excited about, almost to the point that we did a story that the Jets are almost more excited about that menial play that happens in the middle of the game, but that's a high intensity, high effort play that is one of those things that makes the system what it is. The Jets were so bought into it that those plays were what was most rewarded by your teammates on the bench, more so than goals or big saves or any of those things. It was like a nod to we're doing all the little things right. That's what excites us. They got to get back to that. That has to become the focus. And then the wins will come after that. But they need to put the blinders on and go straight at this is what that blueprint was. Let's lock in on the blueprint. If a goal goes in, you don't take your eyes off it. Get back to the blueprint. I don't care if they lose 7 of their last 8. If they can get to a semblance of their blueprint in that 8th game before they go to the playoffs, they'll give themselves a better chance than what they're giving themselves right now.
Yeah, right on. And quickly, for folks in the chat room who are asking about Lauren Brossoit, Lauren Brossoit will start on Monday. That's what Rick Bowness said today was the plan the whole way along. There's 8 games left. Sean, to me, I can't see a path where Connor Hellebuyck doesn't play 5 out of the 8 at least to get to 60 starts. But again, Brossoit will play Monday. I think he needed to play at least one during this stretch, but that again, this is not 2020 vision or revisionist history. We said it in real time, and I still believe that that's the case. I don't think that that's why it went off the rails for the Jets, but I don't think it was necessarily necessary to play him 5 out of the last 8 here. But Connor told me on Friday, Scott Billick and myself and Paul Edmonds were talking to him. He wants to get into a rhythm, and it sounds like he thinks he needs basically to get to just around 60 games to get himself ready for the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how the Jets play this stretch. And I'm with you completely. I mean, of course, the Jets are trying to win every game, but they got to play the long game here. They need to be committed to the structure. And I understand people are saying, why all I'm talking about is defense. I'm sorry. That's the only way for the Jets to win is defensively. They're not going to win games 6-5 in the playoffs. And people are saying, what about Nashville? Nashville went 16-0-2. Yeah, that's true. They also gave up 8 to the Arizona Coyotes and 7 today to Colorado. So that's not necessarily going to be a path to winning in the playoffs either. Though, again, I applaud what the Predators did to get themselves back in the race. But the Jets aren't going to turn from a defense-first team to one that is trying to win games 7-6. I talked about this with Nate Schmidt earlier in the week, Sean. Jets got to have a 2-1 or 3-2 mentality, and right now they're not playing with that mentality, and that's a big problem.
LMFAO Jet says, you keep saying Helly is playing great, yet he can't steal this team a win. He's being average. He's tired. His time has been mismanaged, and his ego won't allow him to sit even when he should. I'll say this in there. I mean, LMFAO Jets is right. Like, he hasn't single-handedly won them a game. I still contend these games down the stretch here from what we've seen look a lot worse and a lot less hopeful if Connor Hellebuyck isn't being Connor Hellebuyck over this last little while. Ken, Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, even though it didn't prevent the Senators from scoring on the power play, the Alex Iafallo block off the Jake Sanderson slapper is my Johnson Group play of the game. There were a couple other good back check plays during the game itself, but that was a big play in the game by Alex Iafallo there.
Good stuff. I'll go with it. That's I'll agree with you on the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game, which brings us to the keg save of the game. What do you got, Ken?
I mean, Hellebuyck on. I think it has to be Hellebuyck on Stützle. I mean, it allowed them to get a little bit of stabilization early in the period, and then they scored the goal shortly thereafter. It was a power play chance, in the first minute of the second. There were several other opportunities in Connor Hellebuyck's 500th NHL game, which, again, massive milestone for a guy who, A, 5th round draft pick, B, a guy who's been in one organization, and C, a guy who, committed himself to the next 7 more years here. So that to me was the save of the game, though. I mean, Korpisalo, honorable mention for his, you know, ridiculous dive back into the crease on the Mark Scheifele
Mark
chance there.
Scheifele was right. It was missing the net.
Oh, you got a good view of it? Yeah, it
Oh
was
yeah,
gonna be
it
wide.
was missing the net by quite a bit. Like, it's funny because the Jets
Oh,
had 2 wide open nets in that game and they missed them both, but it was missing by a good maybe a foot at that
okay.
stage, if not
All right.
8 inches, but not quite as bad as Sean Monahan's. But to me, it's the Stützle on the power play where the pass comes across. I don't know if you were talking about
That's what I
that
meant. Yeah.
or okay, I thought you may have been talking about the breakaway.
No,
But
no, no.
what is gorgeous about it is that reaction time by Connor Hellebuyck. I was thinking to myself, I'm surprised he didn't go top corner short side because Connor Hellebuyck is cheating the far corner and jumps out and gets it. But on replay, he's not. He just reads and reacts where Stützle is going with the shot so quickly that I thought that he cheated to that
No.
direction, but he didn't. That is insane, insane level reaction time by a goaltender. And the way that he just so aggressively gets himself in front of it, the way that he does, it just leaves no doubt about it that puck's not going in the net. Absolutely huge moment, even though it's another game in which he doesn't come away with a W. That's our keg save of the game. Hashtag keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And the winner from our last show, Ken, you need to announce it because you sent it to me and I don't have my phone. So if you could bring that up, you're going to need to do the same thing with the Lamplighter as well. Ken, when I'm working
I
the
said
broadcast, is the guy who takes care of it. But
M.E. from
M.E.
the chat room. Keg save of the game is what I
Chatter
have there.
M.E. I believe I saw M.E. in here earlier on. If you are there, M.E., you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me your email, and I will send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And that, of course, brings us to the TCB Lamplighter of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Yeah, I mean we've been pounding the Jets for inept power play here for a long time. So again, some folks will say that that's not repeatable, but if the puck gets through, that is going to Gabriel Velarde. So I think that after we rightfully so gave the Jets power play some grief. I also suggested that in the last game they started to get a little better a few better looks when they had their 12 shots on net with the man advantage, and today they get rewarded with one. I mean, there's I think I know where you're going with the goal, so I'm going to go with the
Do you?
Scheifele goal as the Lamplighter.
And
Yeah,
why do you think
repeatable
I'm going
goals. Well,
there?
you said repeatable goals the last 2
There you
games,
go.
so
There you go.
that's
Ken
what I'm
is
going to try to hear. I'm just here to help.
You know what? Ken and I are honestly, we're kindred spirits at this time. We went out for supper yesterday, had a great supper. And as we always did, my wife was so impressed on the way home because we each order a different dish and order 2 small plates so that we could take a portion of each of our meals to share with each other. So that it's the best of both worlds. You get to try a little bit of this, you get to try a little bit of that. And he totally understands where I'm going with this. And he's 100% right. Ken is on this one. The Nick Ehlers goal is a repeatable goal. It is a scenario where you see Nick Ehlers, if you go and back that play up, rewind that, and take a look at the shot from behind the camera, the camera behind the net. Nick Ehlers is getting mauled in front of the net. What does he do? Does he crumble? Does he fall? Does he get like pushed out of there? No, he keeps fighting until and actually ties up his man so that man gets to Sean Monahan late and then follows him in. And then what happens is he gets lost in coverage in that moment. Sean Monahan, realizing that, knows he can't get the pass to him. And even if he does get the pass to him, it's not in a very good spot for him to get a shot off. So what does he do? He fires it right off the pad. It's a pad pass. Nikolai Ehlers knows it's coming, responds immediately, puts it straight upstairs. This goal can be scored Game 7 overtime in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Game 1 of the preseason. This is a goal you can score over and over and over again because it takes a little bit of smarts, but it takes grit. It takes going to the right place. It takes going to high percentage places. And it is another example for a third straight game of Nikolai Ehlers and Sean Monahan really finding something with them just in time for Renny to say time to split it up and put Nikolai Ehlers up onto the top
You
line with
sound like
Gabe
me now.
Lardy and Mark Scheifele. Listen,
Break up you're breaking up something that's working.
means,
is that okay? You sure?
This is by
sure
no
you want to
means,
do that?
This is by no means on the level of breaking up the third line, which you recanted on so quietly that no one even knew it happened. It was like the whole tree falling in the forest argument. And it is apt, Ken. If a tree falls in the forest, did anyone hear? Well, if Ken doesn't say anything that he's recanting on his third line take, did it really happen? That's the question. We should still lambaste you for that take, because I never heard an official apology to the people in the Kenny and Renny chat room. Anyway, Ken sent me the message here, so I do have the Lamplighter winner. You should share with us your Lamplighter, because if you do, you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your own 8-pack, you know what to do. Head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where they got great pizza, great food, great people, great atmosphere, great beer on tap, great beer in the store. I don't know what they don't have anymore. That's why I spend so much time there. It's also going to be time that I spend there on April 6th, the final Kenny and Renny live podcast show. I hope you've got your tickets, because there's none left. We will have the year-ender to where we send her after that. Regardless, time for us to announce our Lamplighter winner from the last show, and that would be BA Split. BA Split, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, send me an email. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. Try it and you will see. Everybody, Ken, that's it for us. Monday
against LA. LA is having a tough go. I'd like to see Dylan Sandberg back in the lineup on Monday personally, Sean. I know some folks have been asking about potential lineup changes. I don't necessarily think there are going to be any lineup changes on Monday up front, but I would expect to see Dylan Sandberg back in the lineup on defense. And we've said this before, there's 8 games left in the season. I understand that the Jets are, maybe in rest someone territory, maybe in one of those last 2 games, but I don't think that the Jets, they need to start playing their game 1 lineup. I think it was very close tonight, but I think that Dylan Sandberg needs to be in the game 1 lineup, so he needs to be in the lineup on Monday. I'd be curious to see if the Jets consider Cole Perfetti, Sean. And they're talking about offense, so we'll see what happens, but I expect that it'll be the same forward group personally.
Waiters, I was going to Go, do your thing.
Top Line Media says sit out Pionka. Sean, I think that we're seeing something that we've seen in each of the last 2 seasons. Neil is not moving as well as he has been at various points of the year. He looks like someone who is working through a lower body injury. We know he is a very gutsy person and has gone through something very difficult personally this year with the loss of his best friend. But right now, Neil is not playing as well as he needs to play right now. And again, I'm not here to say bench him for 8 games. I think that there could be some benefit to sitting out Neil Pionk so he can help get himself healthier for the playoffs. That would be my personal view here. And how about Tyler getting up and boogieing during the game here? He was up on the big screen. You were probably too busy to see him, but he was at the game.
Didn't see it. Well, I'm going to have to see it at the Kenny and Renny live event. Then
there you go.
He'll do the boogieing. I'm not just trying to hold on here because we're at 1199 in our chat room here, and I'm trying to get it over to 1200. But talking about Kenny and I reading each other's minds, Waiters reading my mind here entirely, saying, did Renny address the Dylan penalty? Was I not paying attention? I did not, and I have to before we do this. I don't often bring up the referees in this game here. I'm just going to say this. It's going to sound like I'm beating up on the Jets calls here and people are going to get upset about it. But the Nino Niederreiter penalty, I thought was one where he kind of it was one of those sniper ones where the legs stop moving and he falls down. I thought it was a good play by the defender to knock the puck off his stick and that he tried to draw the penalty. He got it. If you put yourself in a situation where you have to reach and a player goes the refs into it, it'll happen. But I thought that was a light call. I thought the Josh Morrissey hooking penalty was a light call as well. regardless, if it's a light call, that to me should set the standard. And I didn't think that was standard was followed. There was a play twice over in one shift where the Jets, I thought, got away with one on players. One was Stützle when he came around the net and tried to get the puck out. I believe it resulted in the penalty. By the way, we just did cross the 1,200 person barrier. I think it's resulted in a penalty, which ended up being the actually, I'm not sure of that. Regardless, I thought that the Jets were in a position where they'd got a couple light calls that the Ottawa Senators were not getting in that situation. At the end of the game, when you have been in a position where you've got a couple light calls and the other team hasn't had it go back the other direction, you have to walk out of that game on eggshells and not be taking liberties, because the refs at that stage are looking, knowing that they've messed up those calls, for a reason to even things up or go back in the other direction. Brendan Dillon not only gave them an opportunity, he gave them an obvious opportunity. Anyone, and I know that the fans in the building were booing, and that's a bad call. Brendan Dillon just basically punches a guy in the face and knocks him to the ice in front of the net, and the puck is nowhere around. Rick Bowness said it himself. It's the right call. It's the right penalty. This is, I said it at the beginning, and I don't like going down that road. I don't like saying, oh, they found a way to win. Conversely, hey, I'm one of those guys. If I'm going to say it like this, if I'm going to say Connor Hellebuyck stole the game, or Connor Hellebuyck had or made a save at the right time, then I better be able to say he let the goal in at the wrong time, right? If you balance is balance, that's what journalism is. So I don't say a team found a way to win. I said, conversely, don't say they found a way to lose or anything like that. The Jets finding a way to lose in this game is not showing up for the first two periods and putting them in a bad spot in the first place. But Brendan Dillon is a guy who plays the game to the edge. This is an example of that. Don't be making excuses for this. This isn't him kind of walking up to the edge and going over. This is Brendan Dillon taking liberties at the wrong time of the game and putting his team in a bad spot, and it ends up being the winning goal in the game. This is an unacceptable penalty for a team that is in a position where it's trying to get some good feeling in its locker room, trying to get a win, trying to turn things around. It's a boneheaded, selfish play where a guy puts himself ahead of the rest of the team. And you don't hear a lot of talk or bashing, and I hope this isn't bashing, but you don't hear us talking about Brendan Dillon in terms like this very often in this show, because Brendan Dillon is pretty darn good and pretty darn bulletproof, and when he does this kind of thing, it's usually at the right times. He's got a really good finger on the pulse of the game. His finger was so far off the pulse on that play, it wasn't even funny, and it's a huge reason why the Winnipeg Jets have their sixth straight loss after tonight.
And he's one of their best penalty killers, so he can't afford to take a penalty like that at that time in a tie game.
No doubt. Okay, that's it for us. Great job, everybody. Thank you so much. 12-19. Glad we stuck around for the end. Have we been
Saturday
over 1,200 before? Live? I don't know if we've been over 1,200.
I think we did. Yeah, that other time when we were getting the feed when,
maybe 13 is our peak. I'm trying to think. Regardless, this is you rocked it. You rocked it in the chat room as always. I know my job is to try and get a lot of the comments in here. I couldn't keep up. People were just going so crazy. I didn't get to half the good stuff, and there was a lot of good stuff in there. You'll also notice this was a show that was almost entirely driven by your questions. We always welcome your questions. We think a lot of times the best way to do this show is to just free flow with you guys telling us what you want to know, and we'll just build on it. I thought it was a great show tonight because of that, because of your direction. Thank you for that. Thank you, Ken, for being you, and to everyone out there, I want to say, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate the contributions by our sponsors that fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Johnston Group, the Keg, and of course, TransCanada Brewing Company. Thank you, Frosty, for your service as you always give at this time of the show. Thank you to everybody. We will see you again. Another huge game coming up for the Winnipeg Jets Monday as they play another playoff team, another grind of a team in the LA Kings. We'll chat with you after that. Bye-bye, everybody.